Thank you, Prabhu. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. He's going to get your book. Yeah. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtottara Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtottara Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So, I know we're on verse number 15, but I want to review 14. It's such an important verse. Okay.
Which chapter?
Chapter 7.
Thank you very much.
Okay. He's yelling all the way from Portugal, so that's why you can hardly hear him. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, give me 1 second here, I messed up. On this 5th day of October, 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute. Text 14, page 318 in all of your books but one. Maybe that book isn't here. Okay. Text 14 and Chapter 7. Daivi Yesha Gunamahi Mamamaya Turattaya Mameva Ye Papadyante Mayam Etam Tadantite Daivi Yesha Gunamahi Mamamaya Turattaya Mameva ye papadyante Mayametang tarantite Daivi yesha gunamahi Mama maya durattaya Mameva ye papadyante Mayametang tarantite Daivi yesha gunamahi Mama maya durattaya Mameva ye papadyante Mayametang tarantite. Madhavapuri, you want to start? Daivi yesha gunamahi Mama maya durattaya Mameva ye papadyante Mayametang tarantite Daivi yesha gunamahi Mama maya durattaya Mameva ye papadyante Mayametang tarantite
Daivi Esha Gunamahi
Daivi yesha gunamahi
Mama Maya Duratyaya
Mama maya durattaya
Mam Eva Ye Prapadyante
Mameva ye papadyante
Mayam Etam Tarantite
Mayametang tarantite. Anyone else want to try? No?
Daivi Esha Gunamayi
Daivi yesha gunamahi
Mama Maya Duratyaya
Mama maya durattaya
Mamevam Ye Prapadyante
Mam eva ye papadyante
Mayamitam Tarantite
Mayametan tarantite. Madhyamandala.
Daivi yesha gunamayi
Daivi yesha gunamahi
Mama maya darantaya
Mama maya durattaya
Mameva ye prapadyante
Mam eva ye papadyante
Mayametang tarantite
Mayametang tarantite. Do you want to try? No. Okay. But don't put it on the floor. Keep it off the floor. Any sacred books. All right. Anyone on Zoom want to try?
Daivi yesha gunamayi
Daivi yesha gunamahi
Mama maya duratyaya
Mama maya durattaya
Mam eva ye prapadyante
Mam eva ye papadyante
Mayametam tarantite.
Mayametang tarantite. Okay, word by words I'll read along silently. Daivi, transcendental. He, certainly. Esha, this. Gunamayi, consisting of the three modes of material nature. Mama, my. Maya, energy. Duratyaya, very difficult to overcome. Mam, unto me. Eva, certainly. Yea, those who. Papadyante, surrender. Maya metam, this illusory energy. Taranti, overcome. They. Translation. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, this divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature is difficult, very difficult, to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entities are part of his energies and are therefore divine, due to contact with material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures, being emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are eternal. The living entities belong to the eternal superior nature of the Lord, but due to contamination by the inferior nature, matter, their illusion is also eternal. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nitya Baddha, or eternally conditioned. No one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult, even though that material nature is an inferior energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the Supreme Will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Being conducted by divine will, material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. The Vedas confirm this as follows: Mayam tu prakatim vidyan, mahinam tu maheshwaram. Although Maya, illusion, is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the Supreme Magician, the Personality of Godhead, who is Maheshwara, the Supreme Controller. This is Shvetashvatara Upanishad 4.10. Another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound. Because the bound cannot help the bound, the rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of the illusory energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul and out of his paternal affection for the living entity, who was originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get free from the clutches of the stringent material nature. The words Mam, Eva, are also significant. Mam means unto Krishna, Vishnu only, and not to Brahma or Shiva. Although Brahma and Shiva are greatly elevated and are almost on the level of Vishnu, it is not possible for such incarnations of Rajoguna, passion, and Tamoguna, ignorance, to release the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are also under the influence of Maya. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya. Therefore, he alone can give release to the conditioned soul. The Vedas, the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.8, confirm this in the phrase Tameva Viditva, or freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. Even Lord Shiva affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, Mukti padata sarvesham Vishnu eva nasangshayaha. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. Om jnana timurandasya jnanandana shalakaya Chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this is a very famous and significant verse in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna has described in this chapter, in the first 13 verses of the chapter, his external and internal energies. The external energies we're all familiar with. We may not know them by the names, Sanskrit names, but we know them. Bhumir apo anano vayu kangmano buddha devacha ahankara itya me binna pakatarashtada. Krishna is saying there that these 8, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, are my separated material energies. Material means they're not conscious. They're not alive. But they're still part of his energy. And then he says, Aparemitastvanyam prakritam vidyame padam jivabhuta mahabaho yayedam dhyate jagat. Besides these apara energy, apara means inferior. Inferior because they're unconscious. There is a superior energy of mind consisting of ourselves, the living entities, conscious beings. And we've learned in the previous chapter, chapter 2, that we never die. We were never born and we never die. Najayate miyate bhakadasan. We are as eternal and as alive as Krishna is. And we have, because we're part of his internal energy, we have his qualities in minute degree. Example is given often of the drop of ocean water. If you taste it, it's also salty. The ray of sunlight has a little bit of heat, a little bit of light, just as the sun has practically infinite heat and light. So understanding the different energies of Krishna is a very important step in succeeding in the mission of life. And there is a mission in human life. And a preliminary understanding of that is that, well, let's just take it on a very kind of gut level. Everyone wants to be happy, wants to experience pleasure, and to avoid pain. I mean, I don't think anyone would deny that. You may have different standards of what kind of happiness you want, what kind of pleasure, but this is universal to every living being, even the little insect and the ant. You know, I often take a walk. I won't take one tonight because I messed up my ankle a little bit. I'm kind of hobbled. But I take it in the evening, and it's dark now. You know, it's getting dark earlier and earlier. So I have a flashlight. So I'm always shining ahead to see if there's any bugs, because I don't want to step on any bugs. You know, we don't want to cause any trouble to any living entity if possible. And so I see, you know, I don't know if you know that there's one of the most prominent bugs in this area are little crickets. I told a few years ago I had a cricket trapped under my refrigerator for months, and you know I'd be chanting Hare Krishna, duck, 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 and he's calling out. He's calling his mate. There's no mate, you know. He's under the refrigerator. Eventually, I was able to get him out of the house. So we're walking along, and you can see they're conscious. And I was thinking as I go, because as I walk, they may, you know, hear or sense the clunking, you know, because I'm a huge monster according to them. And so they say, oh, something's coming, and then the light's there. And so they think they've evolved so that crickets, you know, can hop here and there and there, but they freeze because they know on the averages some predator is looking for some movement. So if they don't move, maybe they're safer, which is great for me because then I can step over them. I don't have to, you know, have to worry about this stepping under me. But these are living entities just like me. But their consciousness is very rudimentary. We're surrounded, these trees, the plants, the flowers. Whenever you see growth and you see, there's a living entity in there, just like us. But their consciousness is very, very rudimentary. Very, very rudimentary. The human form of life is a great gift. And it's the only form, practically, where we have the option, where we have the opportunity, let's say, to understand our actual position and work in such a way that we can achieve, say the A of the ABCs of the ultimate goal of life. The A of the ABCs is to break free of the bonds of old age, disease, death, and rebirth, going around and around and around. You may have heard this in the Buddhists, like the wheel of samsara. This is the wheel of samsara. In India, some of you know about the Kumbh Melas and the Magh Melas. So there's a city there now called Allahabad, you know, because Muslims have ruled for a long time. Prayag. It's a place where two very sacred rivers come together, the Yamuna River and the Ganges River. Ganges is world famous, Yamuna maybe a little less so. But both are very sacred. And at one point there was a third river, the Saraswati, which is now not visible anymore. But it comes together at Prayag. It's called Triveni. And there's these astrological readings that if you take your bath in that confluence of those rivers, at a certain time, it's always January and it's really cold. This is North India. This is that. So, you get liberation. You'll be able to break free out of this birth and death cycle. And so, believe it or not, there's a cycle. I'm not sure. Every 12 years, there's a really big one, a Kumbh Mela. Then there's other melas, every few years, 2 or 3 years. So, but the Kumbh Mela, the last one had like 50 million people come. They have 1 billion people in India, and people also come from abroad. Come on in.
People usually get lost in that also.
Oh, I bet they do. They have to make roads, they have the army come out, they have a post office, they build a little city. It lasts for, what, a month or so? But what's the motive? Why do people come? They come because this is a way. Yeah, you can sit on a chair. This is the ladies' side over here. You can sit on a bench. You can sit on a bench if you like. Yeah, see, he's ascetic. He's sitting on the seat instead of the bench. The bench is soft. So I was describing the Kumbh Mela. You know about the Kumbh Melas in India? Yeah. And so why do people gather by the millions to do that? Because it's like an easy portal to get liberation. Now it's not that immediately as you jump in the river and you go like a puff of smoke and you're in Brahman or something. No, but the idea is that this is your last birth. So the Hare Krishnas go there too. Even when Srila Prabhupada took devotees twice there. He was with us for 12 years, and it happened to come, there were two of them. And even in 1977, when his health was failing, he took devotees there. But we don't go to get liberation. It's understood that by chanting the holy name, you're already liberated. In other words, the chanting Hare Krishna mantra is so powerful that it can eliminate all of this latent karma that you're carrying with you, which we don't see, but this is also determining where we take birth and so many things that happen in our life. Unless we're practicing bhakti yoga. And then Krishna, he takes charge. Because as Prabhupada mentions here, this is Daiviyesha Gunamayi, belongs to me. This is my Maya energy. In other words, everything is personal. And these three modes of nature and this whole energy is under the guidance of Durga, who's a goddess, the goddess Durga. Durga means prison house. She has the thankless task of keeping us here under illusion. Unless and until we surrender to Krishna. This is what he says, Mam eva ye prapadyante. Those who surrender to me can easily cross beyond it. Those who don't can't cross beyond it. Except maybe there's a few exceptions if you take a bath in the river at the same right time. But basically he's saying it's very, very difficult and practically impossible. So why is that? Because Krishna's in charge of all of these energies. They're his energies. Mama Maya, my Maya, is practically the English word. Mama Maya, Duratya means very difficult to cross beyond. So it's very important as a first step in our mission to accomplish the goal of life. Now, the goal of life is to end all this suffering of birth, old age, disease, and death. Whatever pleasures we can enjoy in this world, and they can be very intense, but they're always temporary. You probably noticed that in your life. If you try to prolong it, like we've all had experience. I know, there's some wonderful feast, and we're famous for cooking. I joined in 1973. We had like 4 or 5 excellent cooks. And this is the New York temple, one of the main temples at that time. I'm just coming in, and basically so many of the sense pleasures are shut down. You're not consorting with the opposite sex. You're certainly not having any drugs. You're getting up early, taking cold showers. All this stuff. But then comes the feast, especially the Sunday feast. So many wonderful pakoras and different subjis. I'll be honest. I'll confess. Now it's time. It's 50 years later. I became a total laddu addict. Laddus are made with sugar, basin flour. Ghee, and if they're made right, very, very good. So I will confess, we have so many guests. We'd have maybe 100 guests would come, and we give them, it's strange food. Some they would often leave, they would leave some of the plate. I would go hunting for the leftover laddus, Now, and I would eat them all that night, and then I'd be in my bunk, and it would be never again, never again. That would last for about 7 days, and next Sunday.
How many would you eat at a time?
That I won't tell you. I was young then. I was like 25 years old. I wasn't. The point is that you soon learn the lesson that there's limits. You can, we all know this. If you indulge too much in some gratification, then you're going to have a bad reaction, and sadly, you can do permanent damage. So, and this is again one of my favorite verses from Bhagavad Gita. Yehi sangsparjita bhoga dukkha yonai evate. He says in chapter 5 that the pleasures you enjoy, and he's not talking about overindulgence, he's saying anything. The pleasures you enjoy with the senses are the very source of your misery. Now, one obvious source is that what happens when you enjoy, and it's really good? Well, you want to do it again and again. And so there's a seed of desire planted in your mind. This is the whole principle of advertising, right? Somehow or other, they have your intention, maybe for just a few seconds, some billboard you're driving by, and somehow to inject in your brain the idea, the next time you think of buying, some potato chips, you'll buy these potato chips. You may not even remember, the thing, but yeah, I think I heard they're really good. So, so they're trying to plant desire seeds in your mind so that you'll buy their product and they'll make money. This is going on all the time. But the fact is that Maya Devi is advertising all the time. Your senses are there, the objects of the senses are there, and they're presented in such a way. So this is the illusory energy of Krishna. The illusory energy of Krishna. And we've been under her thrall and in the spell for many, many, many births. And human life is, as I mentioned, very rare and very, very important, because in this life we can understand, the intelligence is strong enough to control the lower self. We understand, no, this is not good for me. This is going to stand in the way of my progress in achieving liberation and going back home, back to Godhead, where there's no time. Meaning that it's not that there's not enough time to do anything, but that literally is no time. There's no past, no future, there's only eternal present. This is the description that we're given in the Shastra, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, another Brahma Samhita. So now time is constantly pushing us forward. And no matter what plans or what situation we have, we think, well, I'm in pretty good shape now, things are going pretty well. But just wait, just wait. Things are eventually going to completely implode. If nothing else happens, you're just going to get older, and your very tool, this very complicated body for enjoying and feeling secure is going to deteriorate, and eventually you'll be hauled off the scene. And all this karma that you accumulated and the unfulfilled desires will bring you back again to another body. So therefore, Krishna is saying that we want to cross beyond it, this illusory thrall of Maya. And the way to do it easily, not the process he described in the last chapter, going alone to the Himalayas, because it's all in the mind. All of these impressions are staying in the mind, and being completely solitary, working on the breathing to quiet the mind, taking control, and then fixing the mind within the heart on the form of Vishnu in the heart, and this way to recondition oneself, overcome one's conditioning like that. Extremely difficult. Even in Arjun's time, it's 5,000 years ago, he rejected it. And Krishna said, no, it's possible. You can do it with practice. And I said, yeah, but what if I fail? Won't I be like a ribbon cloud? I've given up my material side. I've gone off to the Himalayas. And now this is just too much for me. Now I have no standing in any sphere. What's the use? So Krishna at the end says, don't worry. The best yogi, the best person who is liberated, is one who is always thinking of me and worshiping me with great transcendental faith. And that's Arjuna. He's an eternal friend of Krishna. So, but we need to learn the lesson. And so in the next verse, in the beginning of the 7th chapter, he's teaching us how in our very daily life we can begin to see the hand of God. We can see, and we become more Krishna conscious, more God conscious. And so he described early on, besides those energies, the material energies and the spiritual energy ourselves, then he describes the interaction. And he says, you can see me because I'm the source of both energies. So you see, rasoham apsukonteya, when you taste some water, think of me. The water is created by me, your tongue is created by me, you're created by me. So the whole experience of tasting the water, you have to think of me. You see? In other words, everything that we see and experience can be an instance of remembering Krishna. And that remembrance of Krishna is the goal of Bhakti Yoga, and it takes us out of this material world. Now there's one part of this purport I wanted to kind of focus on. It's a very important purport. And when Srila Prabhupada is talking about how we are eternally conditioned Remember that phrase? It's almost, if you know the word nitya, which means eternal, the rest of the Sanskrit phrase is obvious. Baddha is eternally bound. We're bound by this material energy. So he says, we are eternally bound. What does that eternally mean? If we're eternally bound, what's the point of trying to get out? You know, eternally. So this happens. You learn. There's a qualification even of these apparently absolute words. Eternally means since time immemorial. It's such a long time that it might as well be eternal. But it's not eternal forward. In other words, we don't have to stay bound in this world. And that it can be ended. It can be ended by the process of Krishna consciousness. And we're enjoined to do so. I loved quoting this verse. There's some new people here. This is in the 11th canto of another book. There's 11th canto means it's 11th volume of a book called the Srimad Bhagavatam. Beautiful story of the personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada's one of his main literary mission in coming was to give a translation with commentary of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. He wasn't able to do it. It's 18,000 verses, and he was giving long commentary. He finished through beginning of the 10th canto, and he left about 1/3 of the book. And I was very privileged to be able to work on completing those volumes in the 80s with two great scholars, Gopi Paranananda Prabhu and Vedinanda Maharaj. So in that, the 11th canto, it's 12 cantos, there's a verse that Krishna speaks, and he's enjoining us, all of us. He says, Labdva sudurlabamidam bahusambhavante manusham artadama nityam apiya dhira turnam yateta napateda nomitya yavad nikshe yasaya vishayakala sarva taksyat. This is a call to all human beings to hear it, where he's saying, you have attained this very difficult and rare human form of life. After many, many births, all of these other species, it's kind of some heavy news to understand. We've been through them all. We've been down there with those crickets. We've been there with the trees, the sequoia trees. You know, we go through all of them and we come to this human form of life. It's very rare. Bahusambhavante, many births. Manusham, you can hear it's the same word, man, human being. Now, here's a key phrase, artadam. The word arta in Sanskrit means something valuable. It often means simply money or something like gold or something. But arta means what's valuable. And here it means what's called the sva-arta, or the goal of the soul. Sva means your own, you yourself. Svartagatim, artadam is giving the goal, the ultimate goal, anitya dhira. But like all other forms, it's temporary. In other words, time is passing as we living in this human form of life. Therefore, we need to use our time, for the ultimate success. So one has to be dhira. Here's another important. Dhira means thoughtful and sober-minded. What is my actual situation? And what is the means to achieve the ultimate goal? Now, to get that answer, we need to approach what we call the Shastra, the scripture, which are the words either of Krishna or those who are following Krishna's words. God. And the Bhagavad Gita is famous for that. The Bhagavad Gita is the ABCs, but the ABCs are very important and an essential foundation. Then we have these other books like the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is takes off on many of these themes of Bhagavad Gita and is like postgraduate. Then we have postgraduate, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which describes the life and times of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that's where the Hare Krishna comes from, Lord Chaitanya. He's the incarnation of Krishna in this age, giving us the easiest process of all. We don't have to practice so severe austerities. We can't do it anyway. All we have to do is chant Hare Krishna mantra purely. And this process of bhakti that Srila Prabhupada brought, who's a follower of Lord Chaitanya, and his line, is giving us a systematic way to do it, to chant and to become advanced in the chanting and the process. So he goes on. So what does he say? So understanding this, in this particular verse, he has turnam yateta. Turnam says, don't wait. Immediately. Turna means quickly, without delay, or think, because you think you'll doubt and then you get off the track. Turnam yateta, strive. Turnam yateta napateta nomityavat. As long as you haven't died yet, as long as you have your senses about you, and this word is anumrityu, means death is always following you. We don't know when it's going to come. So we should spend, we should get serious as soon as possible. Yateta, strive. Anumritya yavat. Nikshayasaya. This is like a central word in this verse. It means the ultimate good. Shreya means good. In the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, who's the protagonist, Krishna's two main figures, Arjuna is confused about what he should do. This Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters in a very, very long book called the Mahabharata. And part of what's going on here is that there's this big battle, or big war actually, that's been brewing in the Mahabharata. And let's just say it's good versus evil. That's what. And Krishna's on the side of good, of course, and Arjuna. And Arjuna's a great fighter. He's the leading fighter on the side for good and virtue. But the problem is, on the other side, there's his grandfather. And there's his teacher, the one who taught him all about military arts. And not only that, but there's other friends and relatives on the side. So it's not so easy. It's one thing if they're all strangers, and you fight. So he's got doubts. He doesn't think he can fight. And he gives all kinds of reasons in the first chapter. And even from the Vedas, he's wondering, well, look, if I kill all these men on the other side, their wives will become widows, they'll be unprotected, and there'll be all confusion in society. I don't want to be part of that, so I think I'll go begging. I'll become a beggar. But that's unnatural for him. So so he's caught in this quandary. What to do? So finally, he sits down. The battle's about to begin. He's between the two armies. He just, but instead of fighting, he sits down on the chariot and he puts his bow down. And so what to do? So he comes to Krishna and he says, "Okay, I've been arguing with you. I've been talking with you, giving you all these reasons. It's not helping me. Now." He's describing his situation. By all of this confusion, I've lost my nature as a fighter. That whole will, I've lost it. I'm just paralyzed. Pritchamitam, please tell me who am confused about dharma. This word dharma is so important. It's an English word for sure by now. Usually translated as religion. But the actual word dharma, Sanskrit is such a wonderful language. Each word has a root. And then from that root, so many words to come. So the root word or syllable for dharma is dri. Now it's interesting because we're sitting here in the temple, some of you may know, of Radha Giridhari. Giridhari. This is a pastime that Krishna performed of lifting a hill. In fact, in a few weeks we're going to celebrate it, right? Or is it really 1 week? And you see, at each corner, you see a nice sculpture there of Krishna holding a hill. You see with his left hand? So that word dhari is the same root, dri. It means to hold up. It means to sustain. So dharma is that root. What does it mean? That your essential nature, which sustains your nature. Just like you're sitting on a chair. Chair has a dharma, pretty close to what the bench has, also the same dharma. You sit on it. Oh, okay, this chair is fulfilling its dharma, holding me up. But we had one of these that kind of got cracked, and someone sat on it, and boom, collapsed. I saw it was out in the alley, I said, why are we throwing this chair out? And I got close, oh, it's all cracked up. I said, okay, leave it there. So that had lost its dharma. That the chair is, everything got a dharma. So then the question, what is our dharma? What is the dharma of the soul? And the dharma of the soul turns out to be to serve. We don't usually think of it that way. The conscious being, we're serving, just like in this body. As the soul, we are serving our desires, like of the eyes, desires of the tongue, these are things that we're serving. So, but that service, when it's directed toward matter, is keeping us bound to matter. And that means birth and death, old age and disease. That service tendency has to be transferred from matter to spirit. From Maya to Krishna. And that's the whole principle of Bhakti Yoga. So he said, please instruct me, Krishna, about my nikshayasa, my ultimate good. Because and therefore I surrender to you. Papadye. Nikshayasa vishaya kalasavati. No. I'm sorry, the verse I was doing before, Arjuna uses the same word, Shreya. So in this verse in the 11th canto, he says, okay, what should I strive for? Nikshreya, the ultimate good, which is breaking free from birth, old age, disease, and death, and returning to the spiritual world, going back home, back to Godhead, where we can resume our life long forgotten, so many eons, of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. Satchidananda life. That's the goal. Now, can we believe in this? This is where faith comes in. But that's why the importance of what we call the disciplic succession is there. Srila Prabhupada, by his character, and by his preaching, and by his activities, he personified someone who was on that level. He was aged, his health wasn't that great. He went through so many austerities in order to give us this knowledge, give us this process, inspire the building of these temples, deities, everything that he teaching how to cook. He was an excellent cook, and he taught Yamuna Devi, that he taught others, So all of that is his gift, how we can connect with Krishna. But through all of that, even in the last days, he was equipoised, and sometimes his inner happiness and his bliss would be expressed. And you could see that despite all of the difficulties and everything, he was in an ecstatic position. And then he introduced us to some, his own spiritual master. And the wonderful books have been written. Bhakti Vikas Swami wrote a wonderful book about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and his, and all the way back, Rupa Goswami, and the 6 Goswamis. I love this one verse. There's a song about them, and it's very illustrative. The lives, the lives of the great saints. So as I pointed out once, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami, each of them had an opportunity. 2 of them were extremely wealthy and influential in the government in Bengal in the latter part of the 15th and early part of the 16th century. But they were Brahmins. They were very wise, but they had become servants of the Muslim government, and they became very wealthy and influential. But when they met Lord Chaitanya, he inspired them to give all that up and to go to Vrindavan and to write. They were very great scholars. He taught them personally. So about these 6 Goswamis, and there were others, it is said, Chakba Turna Mashesh Amanda Lapati Shaining Sadatuchabat. They had so much wealth, so much influence materially, but they gave it up very quickly as insignificant. And what did they do? Chakba Turna Mashesh Amanda Lapati Shaining Sadatuchabat Bhutva Dina Ganeshiko Karunaya Kopina Kantashito. Out of their desire to help the mass of ignorant people and give them knowledge by which they could be saved, they took on the life of mendicants. Very difficult. They rejected clothes. They would walk in Vrindavan, which at that time was very, very primitive. It had been, forgotten really. And they would live under a different tree each night. They would eat whatever they could beg, very, very simple foodstuffs, hardly sleep. And they were spending their time writing books and excavating and finding the places of Krishna's pastime so that Vrindavan could be established, for all as a place of pilgrimage where you could remember Krishna. So the point is that how could they do that? Because Gopi Bhavarasar Matabdalhi Kalola Magno Mahur, within they were experiencing the highest levels of ecstasy, love for Krishna in the mood of the gopis. They were on that level, remembering that. And it's very important. Each of us has that within us. We have the ability to refine our consciousness so that we're in contact with Krishna and we're experiencing that flow of happiness. And we can actually be very tolerant of any difficulties that come and stay blissful in practically any circumstance. Now we have to have just the right, conditions to be a little comfortable. If it gets too hot, oh my God, too cold, or whatever, Oh, he doesn't love me anymore. Oh, she left me, the depths of despair, from the height of so-called ecstasy. But Krishna always loved us. If we can just, he loves all of us. We can drink that in at every moment. So back to the verse at hand. I'm kind of getting a little far afield. So when we surrender to Krishna, and what does surrender consist of? Well, that's described in summary form in the 9th chapter, 18th chapter. Manmana bhavamadbhakto majjadi mam namaskuru. Think of me, Krishna says, think of me. That's what this Hare Krishna is all about. You're thinking of Krishna. The deities will open. We'll think of Krishna. We'll think of Krishna. He's speaking to us through Bhagavad Gita. and become my devotee. Now that's a big topic. There are books, Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada gave us a systematic way to become devotees. You chant Hare Krishna, lead a pure life, cultivate the mode of goodness. These are all things, and there's instructions, do's and don'ts. You want to move across any path, become expert in something, learn to play a musical instrument, become a champion wrestler, whatever it may be, get a teacher, and then they'll say, you do this, don't do that. Live this lifestyle. You have to run it. I remember, believe it or not, at one point in my high school career, I was thinking of becoming a wrestler. So I learned from the guys who were already doing it. I was a freshman, and he said, "Yeah, we have this tremendous running. We have to run like 6 miles a day or something, to get in shape." I said, "Okay, there's my wrestling career. Thank you very much." That was too much. But the point is, if I really wanted that and I had the propensity, then you have to go through the hoops and then you become expert. You see. So the same thing is true. Of course, it is for a spiritual discipline. Do's and don'ts. Obviously. So that's what become my devotee means. It's not simple. Offer your homage to me, worship me, this system. So there's a tried and true method for doing it. And in this age, the main means is chanting Hare Krishna. Chanting Hare Krishna is so purifying, so ecstatic. It's not complicated. It's not really difficult. All the difficulties are in our mind. It just gets chant and dance to see the deities, and so much purification is taking place because Krishna is inside. He's seeing, and from within, he's giving you the purification. Yes, that's how it works. So that's what it means here. Those who surrender unto me in this age, by the process of bhakti, of course, can easily cross beyond it. So we should want to cross beyond it because this is that's the prison we're in. And the doors can easily open. Maya will open up if we practice Krishna consciousness. Now the next verse, maybe we'll read that as an introduction. Whoa, it's a long purport there. Are there any discussion on this verse, this important verse?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Vijay Krishna.
Yes,
Prabhu.
Prabhu, thank you very much. You're very kind. Dandavat pranam. Prabhu, why is it that Krishna created a material energy difficult to overcome? Why not easy to overcome?
All right, so first of all, why did he create the material energy? The material energy is necessary. Just like, today's prisons, you don't want to think about them really, because do they do any reformation there anymore? It's just like slave labor or something. But really, this is a reformatory. And the idea is that we rebelled. We're rebellious. The very wonderful verse describing how Bhayam Dutiya Bhanavishatakshyan, when the living entity, we're in the spiritual world with Krishna, but because we're part and parcel of Krishna, we have his qualities in minute degree, and one of them is independence. We have minute independence. And a deeper reason for that is that the whole spiritual world is moving on the impetus of love, not like this world. We have little things, but it's love, and love means freely given. If it's coerced, it's not love anymore. So he takes a risk, if you will, and he creates us, although we're not, we're eternal, with that ability, that option to withhold the love. So we're the ones who did that. So how are we going to enjoy? We're going to try to enjoy the material energy. We want to try to imitate Krishna rather than serve him. And so we're given this material world as a place to try to do that and learn our lesson that we can't. Because we're the inferior energy, we're minute, material energy is more powerful, we fail every time we try. We may succeed for a little while, but then time comes and we're finished. And even the pleasure that we can enjoy are nothing compared to what we can experience with Krishna. So, but we haven't, unless we come in touch with someone who's, you remember the analogy, we have to be unbound. If everybody is in ignorance and bound, you got the blind leading the blind, how are you going to, nobody's going to, can make any progress. You can come up with some fantasy that you're making progress, but ultimately you get cheated. So we need the genuine thing, the genuine words of Krishna. That's why Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srila Prabhupada explains it, the real meaning. So we are the rebels, and we need to come back to our proper wholesome nature as servants of Krishna, who are taking pleasure, infinite pleasure, ever-increasing varieties of pleasure in interacting with him on the basis of love. That's what it means to be servant. We think servant means, it means I have to work hard for somebody, I'm not getting paid. I don't know. Now that's servitude. Prabhupada uses that word a lot, meaning servitorship. We're going to go through it, I think, change all those. Because servitude literally means slavery. That's not pleasure, that's like misery. But we have been slaves of our lower self, slave of lust, of the anger and the greed, the mental health. If you have a grudge you're holding against someone, it can ruin your whole life, because it's too late, 20 years ago they molested me or something, and now I carry that with me, oh God. That's the material world, So the only way to overcome that is like a deep cleanse of our consciousness and a deep reformation of our nature. And so that's why it's a difficult place, because we've made it difficult. We're so obstinate in trying to go it alone and enjoy separately from Krishna. But that's not good for us. We need strong medicine to cure us. So we just read in the 5th chapter all these varieties of hells, and it's just a sample. He's saying there's not all of them. Yeah, that's a real thing. So we don't want to go there. But isn't it good news? Just coming to one class, even if you never do anything else, you won't go to hell. Krishna says, he started, okay, because he's infinitely patient. We've been here for millions of years. So he says, he's made us start. Next time, he'll come 2 classes, whatever. But why prolong the agony? Let's go, finish the course. Let's graduate. So it is a painful place, birth, old age, disease, and death, the threefold miseries. But once we learn about them, and we learn the way to really mitigate them through the process of bhakti. If you're not trying to enjoy the senses, but you're trying to live a very controlled and regulated life in service to Krishna, then so much misery and hardship can be avoided. It's not necessary. That comes from our trying to squeeze out pleasures and becoming frustrated and angry and all this. That you can transcend. You can transcend all that when you plug into the reservoir of pleasure in your heart. We should remember that it's there, it's available, and we can experience it with Krishna. All right, I'm going to end with some real nectar verse. It's sound vibration. Of course, we're going to chant Hare Krishna. That's a super nectar verse. But just this one verse. This is called from the Krishna Karnamrita. Krishna Karnamrita is a book that was written that is pleasing to Krishna's ears. Now, who can write a book like that? Only someone who's communing with Krishna constantly. It was this Bilba Mangal Thakur. So this is a very simple verse, but it's a beautiful, and the beauty of the Sanskrit is there. It says, Maduram Maduram Babodasya Vibhor. Maduram Madurang Vadanam Maduram Madugandhi Madusmitame Tadaho Maduram 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 Maduram. So you already learned half the verse. Maduram means sweet. Who can forget? Last line, Maduram, 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 Maduram. So what is it? Sweet, sweet. Now you can just visualize, you'll see the deities and you can see why he wrote a verse like this. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form. Sweet is still his face so fair. But his honey-scented, gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. Now, just that one verse. If you're serving Krishna and you're relishing his beauty, that you can get so much mileage out of that verse. You can again and again. It's not like a material thing. You sing some rock song after a while. All right, forget it. Do we have anything else? No, it never grows tiresome. So let's chant Hare Krishna together in front of the beautiful deities. I'm not going to be doing much dancing because I hurt my ankle, but I think I can sing. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare Bol. Vijay Krishna, was that okay? He's gone already.
Dravida Prabhu has to be expected, better than okay, very helpful, breathtaking answer to my question. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
He would say that during the pandemic, and with the COVID, and I said, please don't say it's breathtaking. because we've got trouble with it. Now he uses that every time.